flight school is best for you? Coming up in this episode of Aviation Careers Podcast. Hi, my name is Carl Valerian. I'll be your host today. Choosing the right flight school is so important, whether it's for your career or if you're looking at this as a hobby. Of course, this is Aviation Careers Podcast. We're going to actually make this a little bit more towards the people that are looking at it for a career, but a lot of the things I'm going to talk about, if you're looking at this as a hobby, will help you if you're looking at this not as an actual career, but also as a hobby. Same, different concepts apply there. So let's look at all these different considerations, and you're going to be a little surprised. I'm putting them in order of the way that I like to preference them when I'm doing my coaching sessions. By the way, you can look into our coaching, aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching, if you need help trying to decide a direction in your career or trying to decide on what flight school is best for you. But here we go. If you have questions, by the way, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. Also, if you have suggestions for some of the things that I talked about, or if you want to add to it, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. So the number one thing as far as what flight school is best for you is location. Wow, that's a surprise. Location, location, location. So one of the things we need to look at are many different things. Say you're a pilot or somebody looking to become a pilot and you're from another country. One of the things that you want to look at is location because of weather. You want to make sure you'll be able to fly a lot. Places like Florida, Arizona, certain parts of Texas, Southern California. And that is a really important thing because you'll get to fly more days and therefore you get your rating done quicker. You have to spend less time on housing, which is a big part of also location. What is your housing situation? Maybe you live with your parents, you have a spouse, you have friends, relatives, etc., and you want to choose a flight school that's close to where you live because you're already paying rent and you don't want to move somewhere else. So location is really important for you. Look in your own backyard first. Look for the least expensive option or what might be best for you. Sometimes that location, you have to realize that it may take you a little bit longer to get your license or your certificates, but you actually are able to, be at home and spend less money, which means you can fly more, which is great. And also, the other thing we need to look at as far as location is realize that, maybe we can do a lot of our training in this one location, but we shouldn't look down on some of the other locations. It's important to realize that we may have to go somewhere else for like a quick course to get something done. What's a good example of that? Say you want to get your CFI, and where you are, they maybe not have that ability to get your CFI or your double I. You may go away and get one of those quick courses done. One of those quick courses, that means that you get all the requirements done, written exams, and all your flying done before you go away for like a 2-week course to get your instrument rating, or a 2-week course to get your multi-engine. Actually, it doesn't take 2 weeks for your multi, but you can do things like that. I did that a lot in my ratings. I did that for my CFI. I did that for my multi-engine. For my CFI, I went away to a school that was for 6 weeks, and then it didn't take 6 weeks, by the way. And for my multi, I went away for about 4 days to get to my multi-commercial and my multi-CFI. So make sure you look at the location because the location is really important. The location also may not be in those areas of great weather. There are schools that are in other areas the areas that don't have great weather that do know how to deal with it. Maybe they park their planes in the hangar. Or they just know how to operate around bad weather. University of North Dakota is a great example. They put blankets on the airplanes in the morning, that type of thing. So those are the type of things you want to look at as location, not just based on how much flying time you can get, but also what's best for you. Again, make that decision with somebody important in your life or with a career coach. That's what I suggest. Number 2, when you're choosing a flight school, and again, this is going to surprise you, is maintenance. Maintenance is really important when you're choosing a flight school. And what do I mean by that? The difference in learning how to fly an airplane and learning how to, like sail a boat or drive a car is that the maintenance is incredibly important, not just for your safety, but because you can't fly when there's a maintenance issue most times. So you need to know that you have a mechanic either on duty with that flight school that actually works for that flight school, or they have an arrangement with a local maintenance shop where they prioritize that school for maintenance. Maintenance is so important because here's a good example. There are some flight schools that by the time the weekend rolls around, because they do their maintenance on the weekends, they can't really fly because little things will break. I mean, the littlest thing that breaks on an airplane, a mechanic has to fix. It's not like in a car. So you have to get a certified mechanic to fix these things, especially if it's in a commercial operation. So that's why it's important to make sure that you find out when you're looking at a flight school, that they have good maintenance. Either they own the maintenance shop, they are the maintenance shop, they have employees there, or they have a really good contract with a maintenance facility. The best way to do that, by the way, is ask the flight instructors and ask the people that are actually flying there, hey, how long are those planes down for maintenance? I mean, is that something that's going to be an issue for me? If I can't get in my plane for 2-3 weeks, that's going to be a real issue. So again, number 2 is maintenance. Make sure that they have the ability to maintain their aircraft and fix them very quickly. Great example, I've worked for many different flight schools, been an assistant chief instructor at a whole bunch of different schools. And one of the things I found in a successful flight school on the business side is that they had the availability of maintenance. If a plane broke, the maintenance shop was out there fixing it right away. It could be fixed within 15 minutes as opposed to 5 days sometimes for the same issue. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's amazing how many planes can go down for maintenance. They can't get them fixed. So make sure you have good maintenance at your school. Number 3, as far as which flight school that you should choose, is do they have all the ratings that you need? Will you have to go somewhere else for certain ratings? Most schools will get your private instrument, possibly commercial, and then you look into the CFI and II, the multi-engine commercial, the multi-engine instructor. So a lot of times those are the ones that are very specific, and you may have to go to another school depending on how large your school is. If it's a school that has all these different airplanes, then that's terrific. But just realize that going in, the best school for you might be the one that you do your private real close to home because of location, but maybe move into another school that does the instrument and maybe the commercial after that. We're going to get into a little bit of that in the 141, but just remember this. You want to go to a school that can get you all the ratings that you need. If you're just looking at going and getting your instrument rating and the school has all the airplanes for the private and the instrument, then you're in a good location, especially if it's near home. But if you're someone that wants to move up to the commercial, maybe the multi-commercial, start looking today at those schools, even though you're just working on your private or instrument right now, and look towards the future. If it's a full service school, that's actually terrific. So there is, by the way, on the bigger schools, and we'll talk a little bit of that in the 141, they may have all the planes that are available, but they may be available at a different location. Some of these bigger schools, they share airplanes amongst locations. So you might be able to do, say, your private instrument here at this airport, but you have to do your multi-engine at another airport like 50 miles away. Start thinking about, how much housing is, that type of thing. If it's a 3-day course, 4-day course, that's great. Just get a hotel room. Maybe they have housing available. So that's a big part of location, and also availability of airplanes is, where you're going to live and how you're going to live when you're there. So number four is availability of planes and instructors. A little bit of this as far as airplanes goes back to maintenance. If they don't have good maintenance, or meaning that they don't have the availability of a maintenance shop, or they have maintenance on staff there, then you may not have the ability to actually go fly because the plane is down. So that's one issue. How about instructors? Do they have enough flight instructors? Many times, especially right now, and this is March of 2025, we're able to find a lot of instructors because the airlines have slowed down in hiring. So there are a lot of instructors available. But is the instructor available for the rating that you need? That's important to ask, because what if you need to go get your instrument rating and the only instructors there can only do your primary instruction? So might want to look into that. Most of the bigger schools, of course, they won't hire people that aren't instrument instructor rated. So that's something to make sure that you can do. Availability of instructors, that's also important. We'll talk a little bit about that in the 141 versus 61. But make sure that you have enough planes and enough instructors so that you can go out flying. So big part of that is actually looking at, the actual scheduling and see if you're able to get into the schedule like within a week or 2 weeks out. A busy school, that happens. It takes like a week or two to get in the schedule. If you can't get in the schedule for the next 4 or 5 weeks, that may be an issue. Also, as far as availability of planes and instructors, make sure in their software and their scheduling software, they have this ability to do what's called standby listings. So when I was instructing, I had a huge standby listing, and if somebody dropped out, someone else would pop in. Some of those are automated as far as their scheduling software is concerned. So again, number 4, availability of planes and instructors is really important. Number 5 part-time versus full-time. So this is another part as far as choosing a flight school. Are you going to be going part-time or full-time? Say you have a job that you need to keep to pay for your flight training. Well, you're going to probably be going part-time. Not always. I mean, some people have full-time jobs. I had a full-time job, and I went to flight school full-time. So what is full-time? Let's define that. Full-time is anywhere from 3 or more lessons per week is a full-time school. In other words, you need to go flying 3 or more days per week to be considered, in my mind, full-time. Because, you don't, when you're training for something new, you don't want any of those skills to atrophy. You want to make sure that you're consistently training throughout. So make sure that you look at, are you going part-time or full-time, and does the school allow for part-time instruction, or do they only look at full-time instruction? And that leads me into the next part. Number 6, 141 versus Part 61. So 141 is the ability for these schools to actually get certification from the government, from the FAA, to actually put together a specific planned curriculum so that they can actually go through that curriculum a lot quicker usually. It's a very structured environment, and it's something that I think is terrific for especially people that are looking at the airlines, but it's not for everybody. Part 61 can be just as structured, but one thing I want to say about this is the great thing about Part 141, you have to operate within a syllabus. If you are going to go Part 61, then yeah, you need to make sure that you do have a syllabus, especially if you're going to be moving forward quickly. The other thing about 141 and 61 is if you are going quote-unquote part-time and not full-time, there are some time constraints within the 141 syllabus because the FAA recognizes the fact that you have to be able to get this curriculum finished within a certain period of time. So if you aren't able to do that, you may have to be pulled out of that 141 program and put it into the Part 61 program. There's lots of videos out there about Part 61, but just remember this: if it's a certified program by the FAA as Part 141, you are going to have to actually comply with that syllabus and comply within the timeframes of that syllabus. Something very important to consider if you're especially going part-time. Full-time shouldn't be as much of a problem. The other thing you want to make sure of when you do look at 141 as opposed to 61, a lot of times Part 61 schools only cater to people that are doing this either part-time or as recreation. They may be a little more customer service oriented towards that type of person, which can be good for you. That all depends. That's again why you have to work with somebody who's either a career coach or a counselor and figure out what is best for you. But here's another thing too, and I know this is going to be controversial and I'm going to hear a lot of flack on this one. But remember that Part 141 programs many times will prioritize the students within the 141 and the schools or the students they have contracts with, government organizations, etc. Even if it's not 141, they'll prioritize those students as opposed to the Part 61 and part-time students. I'm telling you, I've had to counsel a lot of people through my coaching that went to a 141 or went Part 61 at a school that advertises 141, and they had to leave because they were constantly getting pushed back and they weren't prioritized on their lessons. Other people were getting their lessons first. That actually has a little bit more to do, I feel, with management of that flight school. The flight school, if it can't take on the students, they shouldn't allow the students to be enrolled. So that's really important to know. Look at the 141 school. Find out from other people and other instructors, hey, is this what's happening? Be careful with the whole social media and the ratings, because sometimes you don't know if the rating's true or not, because you can see a lot of ratings say, hey, they were horrible, etc., and then turn out to be really good, or vice versa. They can say, oh, this is a terrific place, and it goes the other way. So make sure you actually talk to the instructor and talk to the school. Find out, do they really prioritize those 141s or those contracted students? And again, there's contracted students that are Part 61. For instance, I used to do training with the Air Force, and that was Part 61. And this was for undergraduate pilot training. And these folks were not in 141, but the school would give certain instructors to those students that were at the Air Force, and then would have other instructors so that the other students would actually be able to fly. And they gave priority to both. They didn't prioritize either or. But I've seen schools that prioritize those government contracts because those are really good money, and they don't prioritize the 61. So make sure you go to a school that you feel is best for you. It can be 141 or 61. I'm not going to get into that in this video as much, but just remember 141 will get you through the ratings quicker. It's much more structured, which can be really good, but you have to finish it within a certain timeline. It also is going to be good for some other things we're going to talk about later. Is 61 versus 141, which one's best for you? It really depends, and you have to look at the flight school, because a Part 61 school can get you through just as quickly as far as time frame month-wise, sometimes than a 141, depending on availability and who they prioritize. Number 7 is the GI Bill. And I could do a whole video about this, but the GI Bill primarily is for those that are after getting their private pilot certificate. It's available to certain veterans that can actually apply for this GI Bill. There's many different types and all, and I'm not going to get into all those. But there's that, the GI Bill, which you can actually use from your instrument on. And we're going to talk a little bit about collegiate programs in a minute. There's this program you can find online. And you can also find out what's called the VOC Rehab, or used to be called VOC Rehab. It's actually Veterans Readiness and Employment, it's called now. You can actually look at it under va.gov under careers. It says it's vocational rehab programs. You can look under there. They don't really call it VOC Rehab, but it still basically is. But it's called Veterans Readiness and Employment. Enables those veterans that have a disability or have been deemed disabled or have a specific amount of disability to be able to apply for these VOC Rehab programs. Now, in that VOC Rehab, if you are a veteran, you can actually many times get your private pilot certificate with that through the VOC Rehab program. And again, I'm using the vernacular, VOC Rehab. And then you can move on to your instrument, commercial, etc., using the regular standard GI Bill, or you may be able to continue on with the VOC Rehab. Really depends. You need to talk to somebody at the VA, and there's lots of counselors there. Absolutely terrific. So just look into those as options. If you're a veteran, you might be eligible for a GI Bill or for these VOC Rehab benefits. Number 8 is consider a collegiate program. A collegiate program may be good for you even if you already have a degree. So why is that? Say you're looking at borrowing money, and we're going to talk about financing in a minute, borrowing money for your flight training. A lot of these collegiate programs are set up so that you can actually borrow money from the government through studentaid.gov, and you can actually have all this paid for through different government programs or partially paid for, and also take loans out for the rest through those collegiate programs. So again, when you're looking at collegiate programs, many times your GI Bill can work within those collegiate programs. So again, you have to work with your advisor. I highly recommend, if you're looking at a collegiate program and you're a veteran, you look at a school that has experience with veterans. Okay, and most do, but some are better than others, and just ask them about that. Ask to talk to a counselor and how you can pay for this. Also, ask through their financing department if you're not a veteran and you're looking at going to a collegiate program, how much this is going to cost you. Now, here's the only caveat to a collegiate program. The collegiate program may be 141, but it also might take you longer because of the fact that you're within the structure of the college. And within that structure of the college, you have to work within their semester, their trimesters, that type of an environment. It can work out that you get it done quickly. I just want to make you aware of that, that you're going to have to work within this other structure. But the cool thing is you can actually apply for student loans. You also have a lot of counselors there. I think it's absolutely incredible what a lot of these schools can do for you. There's many college programs out there associated with flying. So I really highly recommend looking at a collegiate program, even if you're not thinking of getting a college degree in aviation. And by the way, yeah, you don't need a college degree to become a pilot. It just makes you a lot more marketable and a lot more competitive if you do have a college degree. That degree doesn't have to be in aviation. It's just that if you're using the collegiate program to get your ratings, usually you have to have that associated with an aviation program. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll go through like the private pilot or the pilot program, professional pilot program at a college, or they'll go through like a management program or an operations program in aviation, which includes some of those ratings, the private pilot, the instrument, the commercial, that type of thing. That opens you up to financing. And that is number 9. Number 9 is financing. Financing is so important. So one of the things we talk about during our coaching sessions is, what type of financing do you have? Are you paying cash for this? Even if you can pay cash, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe you want to hold off till a little bit later. It all depends. Some people will only pay cash for it, and that's good for you. That's what I did. And we'll say this though, even if you're paying cash, be open to the possibility of having to borrow money to finish up a rating. For instance, I'm one of those people that believe in paying cash for my ratings. I did it. I worked full time, and then I got my ratings. But there was a time when I needed money to finish up a rating. All I needed $1,000, $2,000. I borrowed the $1,000, $2,000. I had to pay it back as quick as I could, and I had to stop my training to pay that back. But I finished the rating, stopped, paid it back, started on my next rating. So look at those financing options. There's lots of options out there for financing. We actually have sponsored this podcast, Stratus Financial. They have financing programs. There's lots of programs through actually the colleges out there. You can also look at scholarships, grants, and we have that scholarships guide that is really big, aviationcareerspodcast.com/free, and you can get a scholarships guide for free because of our friends at Stratus Finance being a sponsor of this podcast. And use their coupon code STRATUS. There's also other people that have been giving away scholarships guides for free. You can find out more at aviationcareerspodcast.com/free. Make scholarships an important part of your financial program, because you'll be surprised at the number of scholarships that are out there, even for non-traditional scholarship recipients. Non-traditional meaning people that are older than college level, and also people that aren't fit into a specific category. So there are some organizations that are giving away scholarships to people that just want to move forward with their ratings. AOPA, it's open to everybody. Anybody that wants to get their instrument rating. There's also some very specific and granular type of scholarships through like Women in Aviation, the Professional Asian Pilots Association, Latino Pilots Association, Gay Pilots Association. There's so many associations out there with so many scholarships, and we have it in that guide. The other part of financing too is the possibility of refinancing your mortgage and all those type of things. Those are the kind of things you have to consider. One of the things we talk about, obviously, but get your financing in line, and I'll tell you why. The worst thing that can happen, you get halfway through your training and you have to stop. And that's a real bummer. It's a bummer because now when you come back and start training again, you actually will have to go backwards a little bit, because now you have to actually either even relearn or get back up to speed on those things. You're learning a new skill, and you don't want those skills to atrophy. So you need to consistently be training for that new skill. There is a time when you get enough skill and enough experience where you can take some time off, and it's like almost like riding a bike. But I will say this, even at the airlines, I teach at an airline, and one of the things that you can see if someone's been gone for a long time is, they're all thumbs. They're not back in that groove. But someone who's been flying, every week, every other week, man, they're banging it out of the park. They're able to do the checklist real quick. They're able to notice things that other people don't notice. Their situational awareness is great. They're operating in the environment very easily. So those are the kind of things you want to do, is keep going forward and making sure you have finance in place so you don't actually wind up like that. Number 10 is employment. So what do I mean by employment? I mean employment in the future. What are you looking to do? Are you looking to become an instructor? Are you looking to become an airline pilot? Are you looking to become a corporate pilot? Either way, you need to build hours to get there. Your goal should be to get to your ATP minimums, which is 1,500 hours with a lot of other requirements in there. But that should be your goal, because that'll enable you to be eligible for employment at most places. But employment is important because if they have available to them at that school employment opportunities because they need instructors, or they see instructors leaving for other jobs, that's important to see. Now, in an environment where it's a little bit tougher, where right now you're seeing people low hours having a little bit more difficulty getting jobs, then you might want to look into employment in your general area and look outside that school. But make sure you ask the flight school this, or ask the instructors working at the flight school, how much do they pay starting out? Do they pay more for certain ratings? How many hours do you get? Because at this point in your career, pay shouldn't be as important as actually getting hours, because once you get the hours, your pay actually goes up incrementally, and it really does multiply. It is amazing how the different levels change in the aviation industry. So when you're an instructor, you don't make a lot of money. You go on to the regionals, you go do certain things like banner towing. You do certain corporate jobs that are in business aviation that take low-time pilots. They don't pay very well, but they don't pay well because they know you're trying to build hours. Then you move into those, corporate jobs and those regional airline jobs where they need more hours. Maybe you get hired as a captain, direct entry captain programs that are out there. That's the type of employment you're looking for. You're also looking to the schools that have the opportunities to reach out to other organizations. So for instance, many schools are big enough that some of the regional airlines and certain other corporate environments will come to them asking them for employment. For instance, I worked at a school where the local corporations knew that they had good instructors, and they would actually come and take our instructors. That's how I got into corporate aviation, is that they said, hey, we're looking for an experienced instructor to help us out, be right seat in this jet or this King Air or whatever it is. And then you wind up getting a job doing that. And then you might just do it part-time. Then you move into it full-time, and then boom, you're on to the regionals and then on to the majors. But choosing a flight school is important when you're looking at employment for the future, because if there's none available, you may have to work as an independent, which, by the way, that brings up another point too, is ask that school, like if the school likes you, can you work there as an independent instructor? One thing I will say is that if you bring students into that school, if you're the person that's doing this as a second career, you have a lot of friends that want to learn how to fly, and you're able to bring students in, they probably will hire you. And that was a big part of my getting hired, even at many different flight schools, is I was able to bring students in to that flight school. So that's another reason I got hired, because I was able to find people through networking, etc. So make sure you either have employment opportunities there, or you can make your own opportunity. And remember, employment is not just working for somebody. You could be working for yourself as a flight instructor and make some really good money as a flight instructor. Things have really, really changed. Even when I was instructing, you can make a good living. When I was instructing, it took me 3 or 4 years, I can't remember, to make the same amount of money at the regionals as I was as an instructor. And I was working for a really good school with some great clients. That's why I was making so much money. Plus, the regionals back then weren't paying very well. So look at number 10, employment. The last thing I want to talk about, and I'm talking about a lot of different things here, but the last thing I want you to do is this. When you're looking at a flight school, have a contingency plan. When we're planning a flight, we always have an alternate, or we have some alternate plans, and contingency planning is what we call that. Make sure you have a contingency plan when you're choosing a flight school. What do I mean by that? Say it's a bigger school and you've had to take a loan. And with that loan program, they pay the school X amount of dollars. Say it's $10,000. Say there's an illness or a financial setback, or say you have to move to another country, etc. How hard is it for you to get that money back from that flight school? Trust me, I've had to work with a lot of people that had some difficulty getting the money back from that flight school. A lot of flight schools, what they'll say is, no, you can leave your money here. You have to use it up. Just go out and fly. Well, what if you're moving? So it's going to be a process. Using some of these other organizations to get your loans, some government organizations. You can go to that government organization, whatever it may be, Sallie Mae, FHA, whatever type of loan it is, through Stratus Financial, and have them actually go to the school and say, hey, listen, this person can't move on because their job got moved. We need to move them on. It can be a real hassle. So if you are going to do that, if you are going to put a lot of money down, be very careful. I don't normally recommend putting a big chunk of money down and all your money down on a flight school. It can be very difficult to get your money out. If you do, make sure you look at the financial stability of that flight school. Back in the day when I learned, there was lots of flight schools that would go bankrupt, take the students' money and start another flight school somewhere else. That's not as true today, but there are schools that have actually shut their doors, and it was very difficult for those students that paid $30,000 for their training to get their money back. Not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to say, be very conscious and have a contingency plan when you're looking at a flight school, and make sure that you actually are looking at that flight school, but also your own situation. And if it's pay as you go, it's a lot better because they don't have your money. But also make sure that you have a contingency plan, not just for finance, but for everything else that happens in life, because stuff happens. Maybe you have to move, that type of thing. Also, say you just don't like the flight school. That's a contingency plan. Look at other flight schools. Never stop looking until you're done. And that's really, really important. So I hope this has helped you with the what flight school, best for you. And that's really important to me, is that you pick the school that's best for you. And some of those things that I talked about, location, maintenance, ratings, the availability of planes and instructors, whether going full-time or part-time, 141 versus 61, the GI Bill, collegiate programs, financing, employment, and also having a contingency plan are those 11 things that I actually tell people they should consider when they're looking at a flight school. All these things that you're considering, make sure you talk to somebody, family, friends, whatever it may be, when you're considering a flight school, and make sure you know what is best for you. We can help you, of course, through our coaching program, aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. We also have a group mentorship program where people can share their experiences. We meet at least once a month with that. You can also come and see me in person at Sun and Fun, booth A41 at Sun and Fun. We're always going to be at that booth now for hopefully the next 5 years. So make sure you stop by and say hi to me. This is March, April 1st through 6th is in Sun and Fun. And that I would love to see you and say hi to you. If you do have questions, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. If you have additions, if you have, maybe you want to talk about something that I talked about here, we can go deep dive into GI Bill, that type of thing. Send us a question there, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. But I've given you a lot here. And there's been a bit longer video than normal, but I want you to know that you should use these steps in looking at a flight school. But most importantly, whatever it is you're doing right now, whether it's choosing a flight school that's best for you, or you're trying to decide on what the next step is in your career, don't just sit there. Try to do something. Take action today. Take one step today to move forward in your career and in your life. And I know you will make it to your destination quicker than you think. Well, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.